what's that?
Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is a Paintisode. We're doing this one live, so hopefully it's not going to be too choppy and stuff. But for those who don't remember what these are, it's going to be about an hour long. We're going to be painting and chatting about stuff. You're not supposed to be really watching. If you want to, you can, but just pull out your paints and go and paint your own stuff. And hopefully at the end, we'll paint a thing, so will you, and we'll get to chat about some things.
Yeah.
And I actually have someone else here with me today. This is someone from my Short Porkers group, and this is Ransom.
Thank you.
Nice
to be here.
Do you want to talk about your channel or your experience in the hobby?
My channel. I don't have a channel.
You just told me you had a channel.
I created a channel the other day. It has 0 videos, so maybe one day I'll get some videos on there. But
so run over there and subscribe, because you never know.
We'll put the link in the description.
One day it'll
Isn't
be
that
fun.
what they say? That's what they say on all the videos, right?
Yeah.
Links in the description.
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh.
So today we're both going to be painting Warmachine models. For me, it's because I have a tournament this weekend, but as well, we're doing kind of like a painting kind of challenge here in our community here. We have to try and do at least 10 points a month.
Yep. And
unlike my cowardly brother, Ransom here did go for it. So he has to make sure he keeps up with it, which is hard because
peer pressure is a thing.
Yeah, but we're also both fathers, and so that means I only have free time right now because my kids just went to bed. So
there you go. My kids are at home waiting for me to get home, so they can go to bed.
Oh, really? They're gonna wait for that?
Yeah, it's summer. They got nothing better to do.
Yeah, might as well stay up and have some fun. Yeah, so I thought some of the things we talk about is the first thing is just like I said, we're part of this group, the Short Porkers, and just the whole idea of what a group like this kind of gives you, because what you can do is, I mean, if you don't know anybody or if you don't have a place to play, you can't always just go to the store and get games in there. But I find if you have your own little group, you get a lot more out of it. So right now in our group here, it's kind of weird where there's the 3 of us, myself, my brother, and Ransom, and then we always have like a mix of other people that will come and play as well.
We've got about, what, 5 or 6 other guys that randomly come out when they can.
Yeah, so it's always kind of a mix of guys, but the kind of core group is the 3 of us. And of course we have our own little side Facebook group where we're always talking tactics, or usually more just
calling each other
out and stuff like that. Yeah. But what have you found to be like the big advantages of the group, or disadvantages so far to the group?
The only disadvantage, I guess I'd say, just because the group's so small, it's hard to get a big diversity of games and factions in.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing better with that. Like your brother's picked up Manoff now, and you play a lot of factions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm strictly Legion at the moment. I have Pirates too, but I don't play them very often. But for advantages, it's nice because we live close, and we get together about what
every couple of weeks.
Yeah, every 2 weeks. So we get 2 or 3 games in. We stay up late, and it's nice to get a lot of games in. It's nice to get to know each other, and we're fairly matched, I think, in skill level, which helps. So we're always challenging each other. It's not complete trouncing one way or the other, which that's a nice benefit. We're always challenging each other to get better too.
So when I was in 40K, I had a group again with my brother and my cousin and my cousin's cousin, and that one fell apart. Now, what happened there is that was a really competitive group all the time. It was just going for the best that we can all the time, and eventually, I think the main problem there is that whereas with our group, we have the main 3, and then we switch out who else is going to be there that day. Probably should have ran the dishwasher at the same time as the show. But it was always just our 4. Always, always, always. And it got to the point where you would show up as like, oh yeah, it's this army versus this army. Let's just see who rolls and who wins first turn. Oh, you did? Okay, we know it's going to go down like this. Do you see that happening to our group, or?
No, I don't, because I think Warmachine's a lot more. It's less static, I guess, than I find the GW games to be. there's such a variety of lists and factions, and we're right now we very rarely, almost ever, play the same list twice. I guess the biggest streak we have is you and I with E. Kane and E. Vale. We played that one about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, especially when we're practicing for a tournament or something like that, right? Then we're really trying to get that practice in. And like one of the things that first made me worry if that was happening is I remember there was one time you were mentioning like, oh, I bet you it's going to be another E. Kane versus E. Vale game. I was like, oh no, you know, are we starting to fall into those trends? But we are doing our best to mix things up.
Yeah, I find as long as I'm not going into a tournament, I don't really care who I bring or what army I bring. So I usually I'll ask you guys if there's anything specific you want to see. Otherwise, I'll bring whatever. And I've taken a break from Vale for a while and mixing it up and trying to bring just more varied armies to just keep it fresh.
Yeah, I mean it's even better for us too because whereas we could just be practicing our favorite caster and stuff like that, well, then all of a sudden, you know, if I go to a tournament and I'm up against Legion, it's like, oh, that's fine. I play against Ransom all the time in his Legion. But if he doesn't run Epic Veil, I could be in for a real surprise, right? So the more diversity we do, I mean, it's not only makes it more fun and interesting for us, but I think it makes us stronger players as well.
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's the power casters out there. There's the power lists. But that's, you know, the one thing I really like about our area and our communities. You don't see them as often, I don't think, in the steamrollers, and you see a lot more varied lists too. So it's nice to get the experience with the unknowns or the lesser played stuff too. It just makes for a varied experience. It makes for it lets you really build your skill sets.
Just for people who are wondering, I'm not going to be looking at we don't have any viewers yet anyway. I mean, we didn't announce this or anything, but if there is anyone that goes and does any comments, I'm not going to be answering any here today. I can come back and I'll answer them after, but I mean, our eyes are down and we're painting, so I'm not going to be checking for comments all the time. I guess one of the things we can kind of just quickly say is what we're working on. So for myself, we're doing, I mean, we're a Warmachine group. We're painting Warmachine models. What I'm painting are these tactical Arcanist Corps, which are really these magical dwarves, which are they're handy. So I mean, I can this is not going to show well at all, but I'll put up a picture up after. But Ransom, what are you working on?
I'm working on a Legion of Everblight Heavy. This is Typhon. He's a character warbeast, so you only really get him in one of your lists. We usually do lists are character restricted. He's very expensive as far as points cost, so you don't see him very often, but he's pretty cool. He's got 3 big heads. He's a 3-headed dragon. He's neat. I don't play him enough.
He's basically like a Hydra, kind of. With
basically, yeah. He comes out, he sprays little fire templates out, and then he bites guys with the heads, and he does cool stuff.
Now, I used to love running Typhon with P. Lilith because her ability lets you get to that extra dice to hit.
Oh, absolutely.
But you haven't really been playing with P. Lilith so far? Is that something you have planned, or?
I haven't played P. Lilith for a long time, but actually, one of the last times I did play P. Lilith was with Typhon, and I ended up with a feat turn assassination.
Okay.
Against defense 20-something Sorsha, hiding behind one of her jacks. So with defeat, I was able to roll 15s on 4 dice.
Because it's not boosted; it's additional.
Exactly.
So you could be rolling 4 dice.
So I could boost to hit on all 3 sprays, and usually when you get a caster that's really high defense, they don't always have the high armor. So I didn't need to boost the damage, so I could save all my dice for boosting the hit. And yeah, the guy I was playing against wasn't too happy about that. he didn't expect to see that coming.
No. It's actually the first time how I beat a grot, too.
Yeah.
What do you mean? The Typhon? Oh.
Yeah, I still remember that steamroller that you and I both took P. Lilith to, and everyone was kind of like, really? You guys brought P. Lilith to the steamroller? We did okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've only gotten better since then.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we'll have to do that again sometime.
Yeah, no, I would have no problem bringing her to Steamroller. Absolutely, absolutely not.
So most of the viewers will be fantasy. So I'm just going to go and pull it back to that for a second. You also were kind of a fantasy player. We played a few games. Was it 1 or 2 games?
We played 2, which is the official table count for my army.
Yeah.
in any size that matters. I have a Dark Elf army that I've had for about 9 years now. I've been collecting it, and yeah, it's actually mostly painted at this point. But yeah, I don't play fantasy very often. I played against Malorian twice. Once against his Lizardman when the new Lizard book came out, and I was absolutely destroyed. And then we played once when the
I don't always play nice with others.
No, we played when the new Dark Elf army book came out. We played and you brought your orcs. So you didn't bring a very nice list.
I never do.
It was a good nasty list, and I actually ended up beating you on that one. Everyone,
there you go.
Everyone on the video was claiming that I had the luck of the baby because I had.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because I had my newborn son in a little sling.
Little snuggie there, yeah.
So everyone on the comment section is saying it was the luck of the baby.
To be fair, it was an unfair advantage you'd have. But a big part of what I want to ask there is, like, what's kind of your thoughts of Warmachine versus fantasy? You know, like, some things that you see that are kind of similar, some things you like more one way or the other. Like, what do you like? Let's start on the one side that people want to hear. What do you like best about fantasy compared to Warmachine?
I love the fantasy models. I think Citadel models, the Games Workshop, the models, I think they're just gorgeous. They're fantastic. I love just the big giant units, the big giant monsters. You get a unit just all ranked up and all painted up, and it just looks.
Just has that epic look.
It does. It's epic, exactly. Whereas Warmachine's it's a skirmish level game, and the one thing I like about Warmachine is I can paint for an hour or 2. I can get my one model painted, and that's all I need. I need one model to change up my army, to change up my game. I don't need a block of 100 elves or 200 goblins or whatever you run in your night goblin list there, right?
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So, I love fantasy. I've never really got into the fantasy community as such. Mostly, again, time constraints. I've been a dad as long as I've been a tabletop gamer. And
that always makes a challenge.
It does. It's not always easy to get in those big, long fantasy games because they do take a lot longer than a Warmachine game.
Yes, that is definitely something. And take up more space, too.
Yeah, exactly.
For those who don't know, fantasy is, of course, well, you know that part. Fantasy is on a 6x4, but the Warmachine is just on a 4x4, which sounds like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but it can be huge. Like on this kitchen table here, I can either have one fantasy board or I can set up 2 Warmachine boards. And then there's the train as well. But how about the whole idea of random movement? Because that's something that they used to have in fantasy now, you can measure and see.
Pre-measure.
You can pre-measure, yeah. But in Warmachine, you can't, right? Unless it's off your caster or something like that.
There's very specific
kind of
things you can measure. Yeah.
So, which way do you feel it actually makes a more tactical game? Like, do you feel that it's better to have it so that you have to kind of guess it for Warmachine and use what you can? Use your caster's ranges when you can, or
for more tactical, I think Warmachine is a lot more tactical. Any game that Warmachine relies on dice, absolutely. But when you can get diced before you even start to make attacks, I don't like that feeling with the random movements and the charges and stuff like that. I'd much rather if my opponent fails a charge, I want it because I placed my model that exact quarter-inch out of where it needed to be versus him rolling a 2 instead of a 4 or something on the movement.
It's kind of funny because it's, I mean, on the one case, in the Warmachine, you can't pre-measure that stuff. So sometimes you make a charge and it turns out like, oh, you're just out of range. But, man, sometimes when you're playing fantasy and you see they are right in front of you, but you roll double ones and, oh, I fail.
Yeah, you think it's almost a guaranteed thing. And, yeah, with my dice.
Oh, your dice.
I'm notorious for, I'll have either really fire dice or I'll have just dead dice, and there's no in between.
You should actually just use dice that are only 6s or 1s. The official ransom dice. Yeah, well, that's definitely a big part of it too. If you could change one thing of fantasy, what would it be? Like, is there one thing that if this changed in fantasy, you'd come back and you'd want to play it more?
I know this isn't going to help anything, but
No, GW, they watch this.
Yeah, oh yeah, you bet.
They'll
No,
make the change.
I find that the GW games are very. You need the new models when they come out. You need the new models to play with the new book. Otherwise, you're playing a subpar army, and I just found it incredibly cost prohibitive to keep up with my army. But that's just me. I know a lot of guys will gladly go out and buy all the new boxes on the new day, and
yeah.
But you know, I can't justify paying.
I mean, because you had a couple of Hydras before. Well, also it's like, well, now you need the Charybdis, right? That's
yes, exactly. They take something that was good. They took a perfectly good list, and they take all your good models that everyone has, and all of a sudden they're the B choices. And if you want to be competitive, you got to buy all these new models, and you know, or they take the stuff that no one ever had in the first place, and they update it, and then all of a sudden they're really good. So everybody's got to go out and buy all this stuff that wasn't selling. It's a great marketing project, but unfortunately, it's just not something I was really enjoying keeping up with.
Now, here's something that I've talked about a couple of times before, and that's the long term of Warmachine versus fantasy. Now, in fantasy, they'll from time to time come out with new main rule books, and they'll come out with main rule army books, and that's kind of how the game refreshes itself. For Warmachine, they come out with new models, and my fear was that over time, it doesn't seem to me like the Warmachine model is sustainable, because eventually you're just going to come out with so many different units that when something new comes out, it's like, oh, well, that's just intrinsically better or worse than these other things, right?
Yeah.
It just, you get to that point where there's just too much.
There's a saturation, and everything's going to overlap, and the factions will lose their individuality. And yeah, I can see that.
So what do you think I mean, so clearly then you say you agree. What do you think that Warmachine can actually do to make sure they don't fall down into that trap?
That's a good question. I would have no idea.
Because I mean, they can go to Mark III to kind of buy them a little bit of time, but again, they're still there with the same amount of models.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I really don't know what they're going to do once they hit that saturation point. But
what do you think?
About what?
What are they going to do to fix it?
Fix what?
The problem.
Yeah.
Duct tape.
Okay, yeah.
Perfect.
That can work.
They're men, right?
So that's the one thing. I mean, when I am comparing the two, I mean, so far we've been comparing the two. It's like, oh, you know, Warmachine has been getting our nod here, but that's my real worry going forward. Is there just this timer on Warmachine that as much as we like it, I mean, maybe 5 years down the road, it's just kind of dead because it's run its course and they can't really expand anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's. I have thought about that too. So I'm not sure what they'll do. They seem to be very innovative though. and they don't seem to be as static as I find GW is, and they're really pushing Warmachine to be a real. Ooh, I just dropped my model there. That was awesome. A real competitive game now, or like an officially competitive game.
Yes. Yeah.
With their world championship.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that, right? And maybe that might be part of it. Is over time they'll maybe even. I don't know if they ever would do like the Magic the Gathering restricted or seasonal models or stuff like that, where certain things are restricted in the competitive play to a point. It could be an option for them for the competitive level, and there's nothing would be stopping you from playing what you've got at home.
No. Now, here's another part. If you were Games Workshop, what ideas would you steal from Warmachine to make it a better game? The one that I always came to was the zones. The way that they do the scenarios, where you have to go after flags, objectives, and zones, really always forces you to the middle to move around the board. What would you steal from Warmachine to go to Fantasy to make it a better game?
Oh, I love the scenarios. I think it's you change up the scenarios, you change up the game. If there's a meta problem where gun lines are just absolutely destroying everything, that's what Warmachine was running into. And Privateer Press, they were looking at their tournaments and they were seeing that gun lines were just ruining everyone's day. So they created these scenarios and they created Killbox.
Yeah.
Right, to force everyone into the center.
Oddly, I got into Signar after they made the changes.
Yeah.
I missed the heyday of the gun lines.
Yeah, the Manoth gun lines, the Fury 2 gun lines, it was, I guess it was pretty ugly, and that's why they created these scenarios. And I think Privateer Press is really great. The playtester groups and for like the competitive stuff, and they've got a really great community for that.
Mm-hmm.
And people seem to be really, really involved. Like I haven't been on any of the Games Workshop forums in a long time. The last time I was on them, they were really starting to die. Like I used to be on the Dark Elf forums quite a bit, and they died completely. Like it was dead. There was almost no posts. The new book came out, it picked up for a little bit, and I don't know if the excitement's continued. So I don't know what GW needs to do to...
Well, they could be coming close to a new edition here, right?
Yeah, and that always picks up people, right? It gets new revenue, and I know when the 7th edition came out, I ran out and got the new book right away, even though I hadn't played in years. I still only played the 1 or 2 games of it.
Your vast array of paperweights.
Yeah, exactly. I have a lot of books that they were cracked.
If we're ever invaded by paper, go to this guy's house. You will be totally safe. But yeah, so I mean, we'll have to see what happens there. Now, of course, another problem with going onto the forums is it used to be really nice. I go into Warseer and I see what sort of leaks were out and learn about these things. But now there's also this really big difference between Privateer Press and Games Workshop, where Privateer Press will leak things a long time in the future, right? I mean, there's models that have been leaked for half a year which aren't even out yet.
I wouldn't even call it a leak. A lot of it is Privateer Press previewing it to you through their own little their own little newsletters or whatever.
And before, that's kind of like how, well, okay, the Games Workshop would do it like as a leak, right? These things would get out, but you're pretty sure there's Games Workshop that did it.
Absolutely.
But you knew these things were coming. Now, sometime during this month, the Bretonians are supposed to be getting their new book, and so far, unless I've missed it, I have seen no pictures or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas normally before, I would already know what models are coming out, I'd know the rules, I would have made a list by now.
Yeah, exactly. You'd know exactly what you want to buy on release day, and you could walk in and just spend all your money. And
now, it seems that actually like both companies are doing it wrong, because whereas for the Privateer Press, they're now leaking so far in the future that books come out and people don't even want to buy them because there's nothing left for them, right? It's all been leaked. Whereas on the Games Workshop side, you know, they announce also like, oh, Bretonnians this weekend. It's like, well, okay, my budget's not ready. I'm not ready to buy this stuff.
Yeah, and Privateer Press, you don't need the books when they come out because everything's on the cards when you buy the model.
Yeah.
So if you want the book you want for the story in there, which, you know, I like the stories, but not usually enough to buy the book.
Hmm. Which fluff do you like better between the two?
You know, I really used to like the Games Workshop fluff until it stopped moving.
Yes.
It died. Like it was cool because they had because I'm a Dark Elf guy, so I followed a lot of the Dark Elf fluff, and they had that High Elf, the blind guy. He was invading the Dark Elf land, and you know, and Dark Elves are getting ready to come at Ultuan again, and then everything just kind of stopped, and that kind of backed up like it never happened. And then you read the new editions, and they're just very generic history books. There's no story to it anymore. I was really disappointed with that.
Yeah, that's the big thing I used to look forward to. Is a new book would come out, and they would always have like their little calendar that says like, oh, and this year this happened this year.
Yeah.
And they'd always add like a little tiny thing. It might not be something important, but it'd be like, oh, there was this battle here or something, right? And it was just like, oh, okay, well, I could always make a game around that type of idea or something like that. But now there's just nothing. It's just completely stalled. So I used to really like the Games Workshop stuff, but now, I mean, how many times can you read the same story?
Exactly. You know, I can pull out the last two editions, and the differences between them are just so minimal, and they've taken the characters out, and that you got no characters, you got no one to relate to, and it's like I said, then it's just a history book. It's just a list of battles that happened, and well, big deal. It's just battles, right?
Yeah.
You know, I really do like the Privateer Press storyline going on. The only thing, the main characters, they've all got plot armor, right? So you never really be too worried about them.
Yeah.
No one dies forever.
Lilith just dies and then she's brought back, or
Denegra gets cut in half and she gets stitched back up. And
no worries,
right? It's you know, so spoilers, I guess.
Oh, people don't know that.
You don't know that by now, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So, but they're keeping it fresh. Like some of the stuff that's going on in the last book it's pretty interesting. There's a big storyline going on right now that's pretty cool. So, I do think they have that going for them. The writer, like the fluff writer, most of it's Doug Seacat, I believe.
I have no idea.
No, you don't know.
I read it like it's the truth.
Fair enough.
I'm not reading fluff, it's the news.
It's the news, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm trying to remember if these guys have magical weapons. I do a thing where whenever somebody actually has magical weapons, I make them gold, so I even remember.
I do not play those guys, so I couldn't tell you. I know they do the cloud thing, and they shoot fireballs. But I don't know if they have magical weapons.
They're also solid in combat.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll take a break from that stuff and maybe talk a little bit of hobby, painting things. So when you're painting, what would you say is kind of like your style whenever you're painting your models?
What do you mean style?
Like I would say that my style is just paint to numbers, just really roughly put on a wash, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
It's a really sloppy type thing I do.
Unfortunately, I'm slowly heading that way.
It's so convenient and fast.
Oh, exactly. Well, right now, all I've been doing is basically just washing this guy, and I will probably give him a light highlight on his skin. And maybe I've actually even stopped doing that on the last couple beasts, and then throw some brown on the armor, give it a wash, and bang, it's done. Do you know what the best thing about painting Legion beasts is, Brian?
They're damn easy.
There's no eyes.
Yes.
And that is fantastic. I'm probably going to be painting up my unit of Striders this weekend, and I'm just dreading painting 8 sets of eyes.
Yeah, they give you the option for the leader of these guys whether he'll be with the helmet or whether the helmet's off. Yeah, that helmet's on.
Oh yeah,
painting those eyes.
See, and if I go back, and I've also got a set of Space Marines at home, and most of them I tried to do without helmets because I actually liked painting faces. I used to put a lot of time, a lot of effort into getting the shading and the highlighting, doing the skin, and doing all kinds of fancy gradients and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's wash, dry brush,
Done.
base coat, wash, done. I hope it doesn't chip because I'm probably not going to fix it.
Yeah. This is going to go into garbage.
No, it's not that far. It might eventually get a repaint, but
One day.
one day. I've been really focusing, well, before when I wasn't playing, because like I said, I had that Dark Elf army for 8 or 9 years before I ever even actually played it.
Mm-hmm.
I focus on painting because that's actually kind of how I got into the hobby. Was my little brother was a painter, and he'd paint armies, and he went on to win Golden Demons.
Oh, nice.
And I've gone on to wash models.
Yeah.
So he's totally surpassed my skill level.
Does he still play?
He does not play. He has a Circle Ouroboros army.
Mm-hmm.
He does still have some GW stuff, but I have not heard of him playing in a very long time.
Is he actually here in the city, or is he off somewhere else?
No, he's in the city. He'd been going to university for a while, so that's a lot of that was a lot of time
Yeah.
that he didn't put into models and stuff like that. And now he's just got a new job, and so again, it's not a lot of time. I'm just married, and so
Oh, the excuses.
yeah, the excuses roll, and why he won't get together and let me kick his butt anymore. But
Honestly, he's scared, right?
probably.
He knows you've grown too powerful.
He's also really big into conversion, so he's had a wolf basically since I've started playing, so almost 2.5 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still working on getting his conversion just perfect.
Just as we
Just building it up with green stuff, and he models really well. Like he'll do his own stuff, and if he ever finishes it, guaranteed it'll be gorgeous. But he very rarely finishes.
It'll be a ways in the future.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
exactly. Yeah, he's got a bit of a reputation. A lot of the GW guys, that all the guys that used to work in the stores, kind of know him. And they always ask, "Oh, have your brother ever finished painting this?" No.
No.
Is he going to?
I will hold your breath.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so he went off to win Golden Demons, and he really got into the painting. Whereas now I'm really into the playing. I like the tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
I like the community. The Warmachine community is so awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, and you can't beat that.
So, what do you think made you make that shift? So you said before you liked painting more, and then all of a sudden now you just don't really care about it. So clearly, I mean, if you were to probably classify yourself, you're more of a gamer than a painter.
At this point, yeah.
Is it strictly just because you have time, or did you just get more competitive, or what happened to cause that?
The lack of time to paint, because now I have 4 kids and I work shift work. So to be able to sit down and paint a unit of 10 guys, or 40 guys as it is now in fantasy now, it just doesn't happen. So, but like I said, to sit and paint down a war beast, I can do that in a couple hours and done.
Yeah.
Right. So no, it's not that I would like to be able to spend more time. I would like my models to look nicer. I know they can look nicer. I have some that look really nice, and I have some that I'm really embarrassed when I put them on the table. I'll be honest. And those are usually the ones that we had a tournament coming up. We needed painted models, so
Had to get done.
I got it done, and it got done, and that's about as far as it went, right?
I have no shame. It is what it is. If you got too close to my model to see how crappy it was, that was your fault.
Yeah.
Keep your distance. Nothing is good to come. So in the tournament scene here, another big thing that's kind of a controversy. I mean, we were told by my brother we got to talk about controversy to make this more controversial. But anyway, there's the big question about painting and whether tournaments should require painting and stuff like that. What's kind of your stance on that?
You know what? It doesn't bother me. The painted models always look nicer. I'll give you that for sure. But I guess it depends. Privateer Press's Steamroller set does not require painting as in the rule set
As a default.
As a default, exactly. There is always the option for the hardcore, which requires fully painted armies. And now with their Masters and Iron, well, I don't know about Masters, but I think Iron Gauntlet's going to full painted.
Yep.
Because they like to stream those and put them on the internet, and they don't want a whole pile of plastic computer on their stream, and I don't blame them for that.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't bother me either way. I will paint for a painted competition. I've said no to competitions because I had to paint, and I knew there's no way I was going to get what I wanted done in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to see the painted models, but it doesn't
bothers you.
It doesn't bother me. No.
Yeah, I guess coming from fantasy, it really is the norm that if you're going to a tournament, almost all of them you had to be painted.
Yes.
So I mean, I was kind of brought up with that kind of ideal. So for the most part, my stuff was really painted anyway. I mean, sometimes sure I couldn't take this list because it wasn't painted, so I had to take this here. But it was never something I really grieved about. Like, oh man, this is so stupid, blah blah blah. I mean,
that's one of the things that actually kept me out of the GW community for the longest time.
Oh yeah,
because there was a lot of pressure it felt like to get things painted, to go and even play at the stores. They started kind of wanting you to have painted stuff, and to get when you're just getting into the hobby, that's a lot of stuff you need to paint to play a decent sized game. And there was I don't know, it just felt like a stigma. It just felt like I didn't have the time or whatever to get all my stuff painted up, so I couldn't get into the community.
Well, it's funny because it's even harder in fantasy, right? Like we're talking about, fantasy has hundreds of models.
Oh, absolutely.
Whereas in an average Warmachine list, I would say 25 to 30 is like the average model count.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's so much easier to do it in Warmachine. And it's funny, just all of a sudden it's like on the fantasy side, it's like, oh yeah, painted, that's the norm.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Warmachine, you want me to paint my 15 models? Bull, right? Come on.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the fantasy, the old school fantasy guys, the basement guys, they're moving into Warmachine now, and they're bringing the painted rule set with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess and things like your Tale of Painters here. We'll see
how it goes,
because it's a community that's not used to requiring fully painted stuff. So
had a lot of people sign up for that. So
that's true. I was actually really surprised how many people signed up. What's the tally? Like 30?
I think we got to around like 35, 36.
That's really good.
It is weird. There must be some like girl group somewhere that just kind of crawled out, because at the very end I had like 4 girls just sign up. Just, okay.
You know what? Yeah, there's on the group lately, I noticed there's been a lot more activity from the female gamers, which is awesome, because we've got the one regular in the community, and she's awesome, and it's great to have her out, and she's fun to play with, and actually getting really good too, which is kind of scary. So no, it's nice to get new blood. There's actually, I've been looking at the groups. I haven't been out to the local game store for a while again because kids and work and whatnot. So there's a lot of names out there that I don't recognize them.
Well, it's also that advantage too, right? I mean, either you can drive all the way over to get to that store, or we can do the gaming group here.
Exactly.
Right?
I can drive 10 minutes, or I can drive, well, not even 10 minutes, 10 minutes round trip.
Yeah.
Or I can drive half an hour one way out to the game store, get in one game, or I can come here and get in 2 or 3. And I bring my kids over here, and they have play dates. So.
And eventually, I mean, there's so many tournaments they have there anyway that, I mean, if you just play here during the gaming groups and then go there for the main tournaments, you're gonna, meet those people eventually anyway.
Yeah, and that's basically the way my hobby life has been looking right now. Is I play here and go to the odd tournaments, and I generally start meeting a lot of the new people at the tournaments instead of in the game store.
So to bring it back to gamer girls, would you say honestly, when you play against a girl, do you give them, a little bit more leniency than you would if you were playing against a guy? Does it change the way that you play?
I don't think so.
You don't go for that quick win?
No.
A little bit nicer?
Well, last time I played the girl was in was your Uncontrolled Fury tournament.
Hmm?
She just wiped the table with me. So the leeway, if there was any, disappeared real quick.
Whoa.
Because so I guess it depends on where they are, and it would be no different than if it's a guy or a girl, right? Are they new in the game? Well, then I'm not gonna bring out my Veil 2 list that I've played a million times and taken to tournaments. So, I'll play a little more.
Well, if it was at a tournament, so it's at a tournament.
At a tournament?
Let's say it's game 2.
Yeah.
Do you pull out the big guns, or you're like, this is a good time to pull out my secondary list?
No, I'd still play the match.
Yeah.
Because I get if it was the tables were turned, I wouldn't want anyone to pull any punches on me, and that's the general attitude I've gotten from them too.
Mm-hmm.
This from the girls I've talked to is they want to be gamers. They want to play the game. They want to win the game or lose the game on their own merits, right?
One of the things I know I've noticed for myself is I definitely don't pull the punches. Like if I'm up against a girl, which happens more often in fantasy than in Warmachine, but I'm still gonna go and I'm gonna try and go for the best moves. But I just naturally start going a little bit slower. I explain what's going on. I'm being a lot nicer. It's not like I'm treating them like an idiot. It's just I'm playing nicer. Trying to be a little bit more polite and. Whereas if I was playing against my brother, if something happened, or some of the other guys, I make fun of them if something happened, right?
Talk,
yeah.
No, I do understand that. Like, I am a lot more, I guess, careful with my in-game banter.
Mm-hmm.
Because being called out as a sexist pig is a thing, and I do. It's not necessarily to treat them any different, but if I don't know them, I like I said, I will tone down my in-game taunting and whatever, and just play a friendly, cleaner game versus like if I'm up against your brother, top table, I'll be calling him names.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he deserves it.
Yes, he does. And most guys, I don't want to treat anyone different, but I guess I've seen it before, and it's not a lot of fun when all of a sudden you're that guy.
Yeah. Fair enough. So how about now it's your turn. What topic do you want to talk about?
What do I want to talk about? I have no idea. You're going to the tournament. When is that? This weekend?
This weekend, yeah, it's out of the basement.
On Saturday?
It's actually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh, right, because it's the team tournament on
the Sunday.
On the Sunday.
Yeah, the Friday is a lot of those other games like Dystopian War, stuff like that. And then they have Fantasy and 40K going across the 2 days, and Warmachine as well.
Okay. Yeah, you're all ready for that? Do you need these guys are painting? Are you painting up for that, or did you get all of the rest of your stuff up?
Well, I needed to get one more big robot done.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Oh.
So changing over lists, and whereas I can't paint up a I think I've shown you guys what this thing looks like before, but it's called a storm wall, and it's like this big type thing.
Yeah.
It's like painting two arachnarok spiders. It's really a lot to be done. So when I realized I couldn't do that, hey, I can paint these three guys, and I can do another list I've been wanting to play for a while.
All right.
Doing the jank.
Uh-huh. The jank. The jank lists are fun. They don't win a lot, but it's a very rock, paper, scissors. If you come up against your prime match, it's not a good time for the other guy.
Yeah. How often, there's another one, dark horsing it. So the idea of going dark horse is where you bring something so crazy, so that nobody ever really sees, that actually gives you an advantage. And I know one of the examples I have is I have my crazy epic Lilith list that has this crazy jank tactic to it that has never worked. But I'm dreaming of the one day it does. How much do you put into the dark horse, and is it something you actually incorporate when you do go to tournaments?
You know what? I used to. Like we talked about, we both took Prime Lilith to the Steamroller a couple of years ago, and she's considered the second worst caster in Legion, basically. But we both did very well because a lot of people didn't know what she did.
Yeah.
Because in casual play, you don't see her very often.
And she's even a starter box caster.
Yeah, she's a starter box caster. No one plays her if they can help it. But I like her. And that's the thing. If you're really comfortable with it, go for it. And you know your list, because you're going to need to know your list. You can't take a dark horse and just expect to wing it and win, because there's usually a reason why they're the lesser played casters. But the last couple tournaments that I've gone to, I took the power casters. When I went to Onslaught, I had Veil 2 and Saren, and right. So I guess it all depends. It depends. If I guess a game Onslaught, I knew who was going. I knew it wasn't going to be the Grots. I knew it wasn't going to be the Murderers Row. I knew it wasn't going to be the power gamers as much. So I guess I kind of took the dirty list to give me an advantage.
Yeah.
It worked. But, the dark horse is definitely, it's not a bad thing. But like I said, if you're going to do it, don't expect to just walk up with the dark horse and win. And especially exactly, and especially against guys who play a lot, because they'll have seen the dark horse, whether you want to think it or not, and you might get your bottom table wins, but once you get to the top, you're facing guys who probably have seen it before.
So that gets kind of more into balance. What do you see is, clearly if there's top and bottom casters, that there is not perfectly balanced, but what do you see as kind of like the balance issues of the Warmachine versus the fantasy?
See, I haven't played fantasy enough lately to know like what there are for balance issues. I've heard that there's the power armies, right? Like the demon princes were cleaning up again for the last little while. Where is the old beastmen where people laughed at you if you took them. Your Bretonians were considered quite weak for a while. So I guess it's an internal thing. I think Privateer Press has an easier time dealing with it because they release the models faster and one at a time, and
it's always the same
takes,
person.
Yeah, and it only takes one model to completely change the way a list works or a caster works, and so you can see the balance swings a lot faster.
Well, one of the biggest things I always kind of say, comparing the two, that is a huge advantage to Warmachine, is the whole two-list format.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you come in, and if you're playing, let's say you're playing fantasy, and you have your Dark Elves, and you have a design that's just going to run around and shoot, and you're up against some other army, that is all set up to be more bunkering down, and they have the tools to shoot you. Your mobility means nothing.
Dwarfs the castle up in the corner.
Yeah, you're
sit
basically
and
in a lot of
cry.
trouble.
Okay.
Whereas, if you had two lists, it's like, oh, I'm up against a dwarf player. Okay, well, I'm going to pull out this list. But the problem is that there's so many models, so that's not really feasible, right?
No.
You're not going to start bringing 800 models to every tournament just to cover all your multiple lists.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the nice thing with Warmachine and two lists. You're bringing at most, another 20 to 30 models tops for your second list and most of the time they overlap, right? So
And if they don't, again, with an average of about 25 to 30, if you have 60 models on your movement board or whatever you transfer,
exactly.
it's not that big of a deal.
That's why I like Legion. I can run a 4-model list and still be totally competitive, right?
I mean, one of the things I have found for balance is that I found that the times where that you do get that paper, rock, scissors, where it's like, wow, my force really just does not have the answer to this or whatever, happens more in Warmachine than it does in Fantasy.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of work to really balance things. I mean, if we were talking back in 7th, yeah, wow, huge balance issues, but a lot of that's been fixed now, and I'm finding it is a lot more in Warmachine where all of a sudden you can have those paper, rock, scissors, but then again, the two-list format, that's why it's there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just to make sure that doesn't really come up. So,
and it still does. Because sometimes it does more than paper, rock, scissors, or like you said, there's list chicken, and you put the wrong list on the table. You put your dude spam out, and they put their double storm wall covering fire template, and well.
Or you put all your tools in your list, but you just come up like, oh, you went all in corporal. Oh, I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, I don't have that.
I planned for these other scenarios.
Yeah, and that's, then you got to start playing a more tactical game, a little bit more of a mind game, try and force your opponent to make mistakes, get overconfident sometimes. There used to be a time when all you had to do was feed Malorian something really juicy. Just say, oops, I put him way out there. He's not in my controller anymore. What am I going to do? And you bite, and next turn you're dead. So,
yeah, my aggressive playstyle, although it worked very well in Fantasy, did not serve me well in Warmachine.
Yeah, when you can kill one model and lose and win the game, it really changes the way you play. Like if GW ever went that way and they made it so the general died and game over. How do you think that would change the way the game is played now?
Well, it'd be a lot more defensive. You'd see a lot more infantry. Definitely models like the Demon Prince would just disappear. Now the problem is that the way that it's set up right now, some armies are better at killing generals than others.
Yeah, character assassin lists kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, say the new Wood Elves, they have really tooled the new Wood Elves to be able to kill characters. They have multiple models that can just snipe you out, right? It's just a rule, snipe, and they just can just shoot your character, even though you're hiding inside a unit. So there would have to be a little bit of balancing to kind of help correct for that. But definitely, I mean, I think in the long run, once the first shock goes by, it could be a very positive change to the game. If nothing else, in just speeding it up, right? Whereas sometimes you can have these 3-hour games for Fantasy. If you're playing to assassination, well, these things can then be like an hour in and you're done.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's even the way it is in Warmachine. You get top of 2 and game over, and you just say, hey, well, let's set up another game. And
yeah,
it really helps the casual side of it.
Or even, if you don't set up, like let's say you're in a tournament. Well, the game's done fast. That's great.
Exactly.
Because you get a breather.
I can go to the bathroom, I can get a Coke, and I can go watch whoever I think is going to be playing next, and walk around, see what armies are playing, and a little espionage never hurts anybody, right?
Now, there is that clock on Warmachine that really kind of helps keep things together there. Do you see any way that a clock could be applied to Fantasy?
I could see time turns working. So really, I don't think it's any different than Warmachine. The time might have to be a little bit different.
I think the big thing you'd have to do is, like, right now you go back and forth where I'm rolling to hit and rolling to wound, and then there's armor saves, and then they're even fighting back. They're rolling dice on their turn.
Yeah, that's right. That would cause problems.
I think
because you'd be passing the clock back a lot, and I don't know.
Well, the way that you take that away is, let's say on my turn, I roll all the dice.
Yeah.
So, oh, you had higher initiative? Okay, how many attacks do you have? I'll roll all the dice and resolve everything.
Hmm.
And I think not only would that make things more faster, because a person's trying to keep things going on their clock, that all of a sudden introducing back in timed turns to the game will just be better for it overall. Because, I mean, you have so many games now in tournaments where they just don't even complete the game, right? They get 3 turns in and that's it, right?
I don't know about that. I think a lot of people would have problems with other people rolling their dice for them. You know, that way, if the dice gets really skewed, and it happens, you know, I roll a lot of ones, and you know, if I'm rolling ones all the time for my opponent, just because that's just the way my dice roll, they're not going to be too happy with that in the long run.
But that's, I mean, that can be the same way no matter what, right? Like, you can be seeing the same thing in Warmachine. And so far, I haven't really seen that where it's like, oh, you know, I bet his dice are wrong or something, right?
Well, that's true.
So, I don't know. I think it could be a possibility. And then the idea that you could even lose on clock, right? Like, well, you just ran out of time because you designed a list that just takes too damn long.
Yeah, exactly. It takes the castle lists, and again, it makes them more aggressive, right? And that's part of why Privateer Press did that. Was you get these castle lists that sit back and shoot you to death, and the games just went on forever, where they just plink away at you, and you know, so now you put time in there, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to lose if I do this.
Yeah, so I think in general that's something they're not going to move to.
No, I can't see GW doing that.
The whole kill the general and you win, that's possible. I mean, they've already taken a few steps going that way where they have Blood and Glory.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's just a step up from Blood and Glory in a sense, too, right?
And of course in 40K they have, you know, you get points for slaying the warlord, so that can be a big part of winning the game. You know, it really, the Blood and Glory plays a bigger effect because you can just, game's done, right?
Yeah.
You're at your break point, I killed your general. You know, there's other factors, but at least it's still a part of it.
Yeah.
So clearly, again, I guess I was saying that they'd have to readjust for it because of armies like those Wood Elves, but Blood and Glory is still a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they could even just say, what if every game is Blood and Glory?
Yeah.
Right? That's just a win condition for every single game.
Exactly.
And that would force more infantry, more banners. General will have to be a little bit more defensive. It would make sure that the guys like the Demon Princes, you just can't do that.
No.
You know? Or if you do, you'll have to have just that many more troops with banners to make up for it.
Yeah, or you've got to just tool it up so defensive that, you know, those cannons or super spells or whatever can't deal with them.
So we're at about, you know, we're getting close to the end here. How's your painting coming along?
Not bad. I got the skin done, and I'm working on the armor right now. I'm still seeing a whole pile of spots I missed, but I'm really good at touch-ups after the fact. So
how do you find this whole thing about painting and speaking at the same time? I know other people have tried. Like there's a big YouTuber, Once Bitten, and he tried this once, and then no. Talking and painting is just too much.
No, I don't mind this at all, actually. It's not too bad. I feel a little weird knowing that I'm on camera and I'm not looking it up. I'm just kind of ignoring everybody.
You know, just absently picking your nose. You know?
Yeah, exactly. If I did that, I apologize. I was expecting at some point tonight I was going to dip my paintbrush into my water glass, and I've been really conscious of not doing that because I do that all the time at work. I'll dip my paintbrush into my coffee cup. And
it's nice to have one of those jobs where you can just paint at work.
Yeah, it hasn't happened for a
Come
little...
to Alberta.
Yeah. Be prepared to work shift.
Yeah. But for my part here, I'm actually, I mean, again, I paint to numbers. I paint very simply. You guys know this. but I'm actually pretty much done these guys. Of course, I mean, the quality on here when it goes to when it switches over for the live thing, it actually really screws it up.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, no, normally at the end of these, I actually post up a picture, so I can't do that because this is just straight up live. But I guess you'll see on my battle reports from the tournament. Yeah, that's horrendous. It's not showing that at all. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with them. I still have to do the wash. I still have to put the flock on. But these guys are going to be ready to go.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking at mine and realizing that I have no idea how I'm going to paint underneath this guy without totally getting all his skin. But that's okay.
Yeah, that's the problem with doing the washes. Is that, I mean, if you get that splash of brown on there, if you do the wash of purple after,
Yeah.
you see it. You almost have to do the brown, repaint it white, then rewash it again.
That's a lot of work. I do my two colors, and then I highlight the one and shade the other, and if there's any white, I try and stick one of the other colors on it and just go from there.
That's actually where I kind of stopped priming in white.
Yeah.
I did it for a little bit when I wanted things to pop more, but again, like if I missed a spot on these guys, you would never know because it's just black.
And I found that too. This is the first army I've ever primed white, and I really regret my paint scheme, but unfortunately I'm too far into it now to change.
As you find with the bases too, like having the white base at the bottom, you really saw it inside the grass when I flopped it.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I usually repaint the bases black before I base them.
That's what I had to start doing, yeah.
But you know, things like between his claws and under his belly, like guaranteed, I'll find some white spot somewhere like 6 weeks after I paint it, and I just go, meh. Yeah, because I don't. Once it's painted, it's painted. I don't like to go back and retouch it. Like the very first model I painted for Warmachine, my Carnivien. You know, when I first painted, I'm like, wow, this guy looks really great. And I look at him now and go, you know, he needs to be stripped and redone.
Well, it's like when I did my Nis Hunters, right? If you look at those guys from across the table, they look fully painted.
Yeah.
They look good to go,
Yeah.
right? You would never know. But when you look at those guys close, you got to stop yourself from throwing up. It looks horrendous.
And you know, I've played with your models. Once upon a time,
Mhm.
Malorian challenged me to take
a list I made.
a list that he made that I didn't know what the list was to a tournament, and he even lent me the models. And you know, like you said, they're paint by numbers, but they look good. Like
Just don't look at them like this. This is not what they're painted
absolutely,
to be.
yeah, yeah. I noticed because I watch your battle reports, and I play with you all the time. And the models look great on the table, but like I picked it up just to get it to see how you think. It was fake, and I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that.
No,
but you know, and that's another skill in itself, is to make it. There's the 2 foot rule, is what they say in painting, right? You know, if it looks good from 2 feet, you've done a good job.
Yeah,
and you know, if you bright colors that are paint in the lines, and you know, it's good. If you try and get too fancy, then it just kind of looks muddled and gray and dark, and I'm finding a lot of my models are starting to look like that, just kind of muddled and dark, and they don't have the nice clear delineations where they should. And so either I'm going to start paying more time to them or caring less again.
Yeah,
but I've got my pirates, and you know what? I'm taking a lot of time on the pirates and using a lot of bright colors.
and that's good. I mean, that's an army like High Elves from Fantasy, where if you're a good painter, it really shows. Like that's a good one to be showing off your skills in.
Yeah, and when I get them all painted, we'll get a game in on with those. I'm really liking the way they're turning out. I just realized the other day though I had to paint like another 40 pirates.
Another 40?
Something stupid like that. I've got 20.
Did we just say that the Warmachine was a one of hardly any models?
and we also talked about skew lists and spam, and you know, the dark horses, and pirates are one of those ones where you get one robot and you get
lots of dudes,
35, 40 dudes,
and they're all charging you turn 2.
Exactly. They're all in your face. So if you can't deal with it, you're in for a rough game.
If you don't have 2 storm walls,
yeah,
you shall not pass.
Yeah, pirates do not like storm walls.
Well, yeah, we'll have to make sure I have that game. That'll be good.
That's yeah. I need a second caster for the pirates though. I need maybe I got to get up a good Bartolo list.
Ugh. I have the makings, and I own Bartolo.
Yeah,
I'm trying to focus on the one army.
yeah, and that's my thing too right now. Is I've got the Pirates to paint. I've played them once or twice, and I really enjoy playing them, but I don't want to get too distracted. And that's what I do when I'm like looking, find myself looking and shopping and making lists for other armies. I go, oh, it's time to play the Pirates, and then I don't have to buy myself a new army because I've already got one.
So I think you're the one on the time limit. So are you wanting to go or
We can give it another 10 minutes or so. Here.
finish off a little bit more of this guy?
Yeah,
here?
maybe finish the other head here.
Sure. So I know what some of the other viewers would probably like to get is some insights of the stupidity of Malorian. So maybe what was like a couple of your top moments of the dumbest things I've done in games?
Oh. I should really take notes.
Yeah. Write a book.
I don't know. I've killed you on the top of 2 so many times. You refuse to leave your caster safe. When you were playing Magnus, all the time you rush up feet, and I go, your control area is 12, and I can shoot 14 and 15. You're like, oh. And
I'll survive, right?
Yeah. Oh, I've got bullet dodger. It's like, well, now you're dead. So.
Damn.
It's been a lot harder to kill you since you started playing Signar. Well, when you were playing Nemo, I killed you a lot there too. But
I actually had to have a campaign to stop getting myself killed on turn 2.
and it's worked. Unfortunately, it's made our games a lot grindier.
Yeah.
And they're lasting down to the last man a lot of times. And I've even had, playing E. Kane, I've had to go for a lot of Hail Mary assassinations on you because you just cleared the board with me. So, I don't know. You've definitely improved as a player, for sure. And that's comes directly from playing me and your brother, because you can only get your butt kicked by the same list so many times before you learn how to beat it.
Yeah. Well, and plus we have that group where we spend that time talking about lists and, hey, what's your list going to be? Oh, why do you have that choice? And why did you do this way?
Exactly. And, a lot of times you go, okay, you run into this. Now you're dead. What are you going to do? And a lot of times we go, oh, yeah, I guess I am dead. What am I going to do? And it's nice to have the guys to bounce ideas off. And especially you play Legion, so you've got a lot of good insight on stuff. Although we fight a lot of the Legion because you play Legion one way and I play Legion very different.
You play it the good way.
All the time, Malorian's like, too much support. I've got one Shepherd. Too much support. What do you mean too much support?
Or Spell Martyrs.
Or Spell Martyrs. Yeah, I put Spell Martyrs in just to make him steam.
For those who don't understand the system, basically think of it as a model that goes off. You can cast a spell through it, and so it kind of gives you this extra range while your caster is back and safe, but then the model just dies. And it's a cheap model, but still, the thought to me that you're going to have this model that's just there to cast one spell a little bit farther, it always irks me.
And I love it because it keeps me further back and it keeps me from killing myself. I'm not as an aggressive player as Malorian a lot of the times. And I'm starting to become, with certain casters, I'm starting to feel, now that I've played the game for a while and we've put a lot of time in it, I can feel a lot more comfortable getting up front. But no, I still like playing a lot of different models and Malorian's Legion.
You still like not losing on turn 2?
Yeah. You know what? I haven't lost on turn 2 for a long time, and that's a good thing. But scenario has been something I've been really working on, and I think it's my scenario game's really improved again. Watching you play, like you're very much a scenario player.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was getting just not tabled, but I was just getting locked out in the scenario and losing games before I even got a chance to do anything. And it definitely it helps having a scenario player in the group to learn from. And I scenarioed you against your scenario list
Yeah.
the other day with my Thag Rush. So
that's a big thing I'm missing in fantasy is that, I mean, for Blood and Glory, and I guess Watchtower, although a lot of people just don't even like that one, those ones where you can play for scenario, but for all the rest, it's not really even an option, right? If you get it and it's dawn attack and it's random deployment, or if it's battle for the pass that's long, you don't play for the scenario. That's not like a win condition. If you it just turns up like, oh, I'm the shooty army and I got battle for the pass, that's awesome. But it's nothing you can really play for. So again,
no, it's just it's a deployment condition more than a scenario, really.
Yeah. So I mean, again, if you look at fantasy and if you say they added in the zones, so all of a sudden you can actually win the game by going after the board and actually going out and trying to win that way. And if they had it so that every game was Blood and Glory, so you could also win just by assassinating either characters or banners, that would change fantasy so much for the better.
Do they still give points for table quarters, or is that
No.
something that's dead and gone?
That's the last one here.
Yeah, 'cause see, that's something that forced you to have a mobile army. Well, not forced you, but it didn't hurt you if you did that too.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was 100 points for every table quarter, and I mean that can mean the difference, right? All of a sudden I get an extra couple of 100 points, and the wind swings in my favor or something like that. And
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Scenarios are something. If GW want to make something easy and quick, put out a book of scenarios. Even put they won't want to make money on everything. So put out a book of scenarios. Put out a tournament pack, an official tournament pack with these scenarios in them as a requirements, and that would definitely change up the way things are played for sure.
I was actually tempted for a while to actually run a tournament that would just have that. Like, if you're coming here, this is the scenario. Just guess what? There's 2 1-foot circle zones on either half in the center of the board. If you have a unit inside it at the end of the turn, starting on turn 3 or whatever, you get 1 point if it's not contested by the enemy, and first 1 to 3 or 5 points wins, right? So this is something where you want to get out there, control these zones. But I don't know. I was just always as a tournament organizer, you have these dreams of things you want to push forward, but also you don't want to kind of like kill yourself, right? And
you got to know your customers, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the fantasy guys more than I do. Do you think that would fly, or that would be one of those one-off janky tournaments that only you get a lot smaller crew coming out and the more casual guys?
It probably would be more of just more of a jank tournament. I mean, maybe some people would like it, but overall, I don't think that's what they're mainly after.
No. Well, you do the monster match one, right? How's that for attendance and whatnot? Because that's a rather unorthodox tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it does okay. It's not like one of the biggest tournaments in town or anything like that, but it definitely had a lot of people that liked it. So I don't know, it was something, but that one too, it was even pretty simple, right? Whereas just you take bigger armies or something like that, right? You get the monsters that can go in there. So it wasn't the huge changes. It's like the missions are all different, right? They're all about controlling these zones, or if you put in every single game of Blood and Glory, right? That's a pretty massive change.
Yeah.
I was going to actually go and see if we had any comments, but unfortunately this is not letting me do it after the fact now. I had to turn that on before, so.
Oh, yeah.
But I think to keep your wife happy, and
I think my paint
past it.
Yeah, my paint just dried up. So,
okay.
So I think I'm done for now. I'll have to finish that guy up another day.
So there you go. There's the Paintisode. Down below, I always like hearing what you guys were painting as well. I'd like to hear what you guys think about doing zone scenarios if every game was Blood and Glory. And should we post up your channel? Or?
If I ever get a video up there, maybe we'll throw something on there. I'll have Malorian as my first battle report.
Something like that, yeah. So either way, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.